YouTube and on Facebook, sir.
Sir?
We are live on YouTube and on Facebook.
No, we're only live on YouTube.
Hi, how are you? So sorry.
You are welcome. No, we're... Great to see you. Hi, Vivian.
Hi.
I'm Tosin.
Hi, Tosin.
Great. And of course, we have Laolu, pharmacist Laolu Mamora, my co-host.
Yeah, please to see you again.
Great. So now we are live, and I want to say welcome to you. So I think we'll just take it right away. I'm sorry we're jumping straight into the session. And this evening, we are hosting the remarkable Miss Vivian Nwaka. She is the founder and the CEO of MedSurf, and an innovative pharma tech company. I'm sure she'll say a lot more about that. You're welcome to Innovating Pharmacy webinar. On Innovative Pharmacy webinar, the Innovative Pharmacy webinar series is actually conceptualized by Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy, and it's directed at inspiring new thoughts or new thinking in pharmacy, especially around solving problems and leadership. We are of the opinion that clients, employers, and colleagues access pharmacists' skills and services essentially because of the value they get from them, not because they're pharmacists or doctors or any other specialty. They access them basically for the value proposition that they get from them. So that's why at NJP, we do not just believe that skills should be the focus, but then how do you employ those skills to deliver value to the community, through the entire value chain. And we do that by showing examples of wonderful people who are doing the same or even much more, in the industry. And of course, we are delighted to have you today. So we have in the house the remarkable Vivian Nwaka, a serial entrepreneur with hands-on experience in finance, politics, solar, and healthcare entrepreneurship. You've acquired over 10 years in management, sales, marketing, strategic planning, business development, and fundraising. Your experience spans North America, Europe, and Africa. You are also an avid traveler. You do a lot of traveling. Yeah. Great. Interesting. Vivian graduated from business school at IAE, Sorbonne in Paris. She has also studied at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil and J. Mark Robinson Georgia State College of Business. Your latest startup is MedSurf. Or do you have any other one that you started after MedSurf?
No. So I've been laser focused on MedSurf since 2015.
Interesting. Well, I think MedSurf officially went live in 2016. Is that correct?
2017 is when we launched.
2017. Interesting. And it's been having, year-on-year growth since it launched. MedSurf is currently the world's largest Pan-African pharma tech company. You're directing and influencing flow of medications through complicated supply chains. I remember we were trying to map the Nigerian medicine supply, supply chain about 2 years ago. And I tell you, the breadth of that thing, the way it's so convoluted, it's amazing. Your company is learning from building an expansive and deep environment to support pharma distribution. You're working at increasing accessibility, quality, and affordability of medications across the world. Your aim is to create a single global market for pharmaceuticals through technology and improve access for finance for the end user. That is a very interesting part of what we're going to be discussing tonight.
I'm taking over
Yeah.
for all. Sorry.
Metsef was founded in 2015, driven by the desire to end drug counterfeiting. In 2017, you started a movement. Quality medication is a fundamental human right. It is a right for every human being to be able to have access to the right medications at fair prices, which is a problem in emerging markets like Nigeria. Since launching in 2017, you have grown remarkably to become a company that creates seamless flow for medications across the value chain. You are welcome, Vivian Nwaka.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I want to throw the first question to you. How did you get started? How did MedServe come about? What's the MedServe story?
Yeah, so my background in the U.S. From an entrepreneurial perspective is helping to build home healthcare agencies. So I'm learning and working in the healthcare system in the U.S. and understanding how to, build it through that type of system, but also the focus is on elderly patients and keeping elderly patients alive. Went to business school, as you've mentioned, the schools that I went to, and came to Nigeria I was supposed to come to Nigeria and do an internship for 3 months. And that second month, a friend of mine died from taking a fake malaria pill. And so that just kind of opened my eyes to, these horrible situations that occur. And as I kept talking about it and just trying to process this, because from an American perspective, that's just the craziest thing, right? To hear someone say that, and for that to happen to people. And as I would talk to people to try to process it or understand it, it's everybody had a story. Everybody had a story. They knew someone. It's a thing that they were resigned to. And I just felt so angry. That's not fair, and that's where our tagline, quality medication is a fundamental human right, comes from. It is not right to have to live in a situation where you can't trust the medications that your doctor or your pharmacist give you for care. And so it started from this idea that we can do something about this, or we should do something about this, even if we don't know what to do, take a step forward. And so that's what I did. At first I thought, oh, the problem must be that Nigeria and Africa, maybe they need access to quality medications from the US. So yeah, I was in my American mindset, I'm gonna fix everything, I'll just send it from America. And so I started a distribution company in the US thinking that I would just ship medications over. And then as I started to research that, so that was actually my original plan. My original plan was not to get involved into this thing very much. So it was just send some help. That was it. But as I started to research that more and, start talking to some of the stakeholders, NAFDAC, all of these different entities, that's when I realized that that's not the solution. And then also when I realized how complicated the solution actually will be, and just how complex it will be, but that, technology can, basically leapfrog a lot of the infrastructure that's already in place and the legacy problems and disrupt it and we can build something new. A new way of thinking about the distribution of medications can come out of this. And so, it took me kind of trying to embed myself into the industry, understanding the pharmacy, the hospitals and pharmacies, their pain points, understanding the pain points of all of the different players in the stakeholder, and empathizing with those pain points, and then figuring out how can you create mutually beneficial ways for all of these different players to perform, to collaborate in a platform, in a transparent platform that creates a level of transparency that allows you to understand, you know, this movement of medication. You know, how do you do that? And so those were the types of questions that I was asking myself in 2015, 2016. And so what we realized is that, you know, by, you know, creating a platform where vetted MedZaf suppliers, vetted MedZaf hospitals and pharmacies, where we bring these players on a platform, plug in financing, logistics, etc., and incentivizing, you know, and basically giving them benefits like access to financing, which is a huge one, but then also using, you know, leveraging, you know, partnerships with manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, and major players, to incentivize them to give benefits to the supplier network and the healthcare network, that then we could get cooperation from everyone. But back in 2016, you know, the hospitals, I mean, we had to go and teach at clinics, we were teaching people how to even use Excel, right? So so back then it was very, I think it was like so we actually launched with a platform. But what we realized is that there is actually nothing off the shelf to help fix this issue. We've got to actually become the model distributor and then build technology and processes around the best practices of what we're doing. So as well as build a brand that would allow us to get the types of partnerships that we need in order to fuel this, you know, this kind of mechanism, right? So in the first couple of years of MedZaf, you know, we have worked on straight distribution. You know, how do we get we're using data analytics to preempt demand, get 24-hour to 48-hour delivery, aggregation of medications specifically for hospitals or for us. You know, we've worked on, you know, how we're using data to increase efficiency, and improve as a distributor. But that is all so that we can complete a platform that we then license out to the healthcare industry. And it's from there where we are a platform, a software that's kind of powering and fueling this movement, of medications. It's from there that we can continue to innovate around the technology behind all of this, so that the MedZaf platform in the future can have APIs that plug into electronic medical records, you know, other types of softwares that need to be in the healthcare industry, and basically be that back engine fueling, you know, the transactions and movement of medications from point A to point B. So that's how you come up with a concept that can scale across the world by solving a hard problem and getting your hands really dirty. And that's what we've done.
And I kind of believe you might not have thought this is how much you would need to build in order to solve this problem, you know, on a large scale.
In the beginning, so back in 2015, I just said, you know, let me just send some medications. Someone will buy them, you know. So, you know, at first you think about it that way, you know, but then when, you know, I've been to the open drug market many times. When I saw it, I spoke to suppliers. I took suppliers out to lunch, dinner, try to understand how are we going to connect. You know, are we going to be on the same page here? I got arrested in the open drug market. Well, I've gone through, okay? And it was actually after I got arrested, I was just like, look, this is going to be dirty, but we're going to do this thing. You have to. You know, otherwise it's never going to be fixed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very interesting, I must say. I mean, take you back a little bit. So prior to coming up with the idea or the experience that led to the idea, you were in the US, had to come back to Nigeria for an IT, like you mentioned.
I'd never been to Nigeria before, actually.
Yeah. So I'm like, at that point in time, who were you talking to? What were you telling you about what your plans to probably start something and stay back in Nigeria? How were you able to address all of
So
that?
when I got here, again, I was only supposed to be here for 3 months. So, you know, I wasn't really supposed to invest in Nigeria. It was my first time in the country, and but I liked it. Was extremely exciting when I got to Nigeria. Especially getting out of business school. Actually, I was still in business school, to be honest. But being in that business school experience and then coming to Nigeria and looking at things from a business lens, it was so invigorating. It was so much more exciting than I could have ever imagined anything in a US context, right? So if we could solve these really huge problems, wouldn't that be amazing story for Nigerians, right? To be able to solve these problems and create an environment where people are running to live. I wanted to be part of something much bigger than myself. I wanted to create an impact that can last, a legacy and an impact that can last for centuries. That's my mindset. And so when I landed in Lagos, I wanted to kind of embed myself in the situation as much as I could. Actually, I couldn't actually really find a job. So I actually came to Lagos without one. But then I kind of caved, and my uncle has a engineering / cable / Nollywood company. And so I got the chance to kind of be his vice president, I guess. But but actually it exposed me to the banks. I was, hosting meetings with bankers, with engineers, projects. It was actually extremely exciting. And I remember I told him, yeah, let's increase your efficiency. We need you guys to be like DSTV. We're going to make this much bigger than it is. It was one of these cable companies that had been around for a long time in the East. And they just, it just never took over fully, right? I think they were one of the first people to play Nollywood movies or something. So that was the tie to Nollywood on cable. But my suggestion to him was to fire half of the staff, sell half of the buildings, and then he fired me. So, so he fired me. So I was now here in Lagos. I've got to figure it out on my own. And a family friend, basically, he's an ex-oil and gas executive. So he was running one of the largest oil companies for Africa, and he had just retired. And he asked me, okay, I'm starting, this new kind of solo project in oil and gas. What should I do? And because I had now been in Nigeria and I had experienced the lack of power, which was another very shocking thing to me. Like I can't, I was taking, I remember my first day in Nigeria, I went to take a shower and I had soap all over me, and it was the sound, and I said, what is this sound? It's a hurricane. The power went out. We can't live like this. So with him, we partnered together and we started a hybrid solar diesel installation company. So that's actually what I was doing. That's what kept me in Nigeria, because I was getting, that's what actually kept me in Nigeria and anchored me. And we got to also work with the banks and build new relationships with corporations, companies, flour mills, a lot of those Apapa, Axis companies that we were targeting, trying to make solar work in Nigeria. We were missing the financing piece, so that was the big, I think, mistake, was just to not have financing already figured out. Because at that time, it was right before the Naira started crashing. So when the Naira did crash, a lot of the projects that had committed to paying $1 million plus for an installation were now like, there's no way, you know? So, yeah. And so that taught me a couple things. Like one, a couple things that I took into MedZaf as well. And that is that the people who manage the oil, the diesel, right? So understanding how diesel procurement and the management of that important piece of the business and understanding how to navigate all the different players is exactly how we approach the hospitals and pharmacies in MedZaf, right? So that was a very much so important understanding, as well as the financing piece. You know, how do you make sure that you can leverage, you know, institutions to lend in a way that makes it easy for people to pay. You know, so I'd say those are two big, other than a lot of other, but you know, these two experiences allowed me to get in front of major decision makers in the country, you know, very early on and very quickly. So it allowed me to transition into building my own company and being able to tap those people, some of them even my customers, to invest in MedZaf.
Interesting. And that's also another key area we're going to explore shortly. But I just want to look at the tech side quickly. I'm really deeply grateful at the level of insights you're sharing. I remember you mentioned, for example, you know, referencing that you even had to start at the level of Excel when you started, sharing or teaching the pharmacies, the hospitals, how to use this, you know, to track use and, you know, document stuff. Now, to where you are currently, how are you currently deploying data analytics and AI to solve the problems you've highlighted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the biggest piece of MedZaf, or the biggest piece of this entire situation that needs the most development that does not exist off the shelf, is the supplier side the supplier facing platform. And so we've had to basically say, look, you know, we allow the customers who have a small basket, you know, of, you know, 100, 200, up to 400K, they can purchase online, you know, so we have a very simple platform they can purchase online. But the reality is that for these large hospitals, the large orders, any order that goes, you know, is in the millions, you know, it typically has hundreds of SKUs. And these SKUs are tied to hundreds, potentially, you know, tens of suppliers that may fluctuate or change based off of FX, availability to funding, you know, this clearly the country shut down, you know, like, so there's so many different factors. And so there actually isn't the platform that can help that. And so that's what we've been building on our back end, is what are the processes, you know, how do we tweak, you know, solutions that are already available? What do we need to create in order to basically say, hey, here, click this button and place your order? So we support a lot of the functions that are necessary on the back end for a hospital or pharmacy. But right now we're currently raising. On the close of our raise, then we'll be able to fully develop this nice, shiny platform and roll it out across the country. But it's the back end piece of it that's what's hard. That is the piece of it that you need development and software investment in.
True.
So we're doing offline we still have some things that we do through Excel, you know, so we're analyzing the historical data of hospitals. We're helping them kind of preempt their demand. You know, we'll give them a lot of information like that to make it easier for them using an Excel, because our platform doesn't do that yet, right? But the goal is that they just go into their account and they understand exactly what they need to purchase and can easily add and subtract and then quickly click on a button and be done with it.
Great. And did you have to say sometime when you started, did you have to help them crunch the data they had, historical data? Did you have to do that?
That's what we do. That's what we've been doing since the beginning is how can we help you? How can we help you? And if we can help you, maybe you don't need to go to Open Drug Market. Maybe you just sit at your chair and you click on this button. Yeah.
Interesting. And I mean, remarkable. I wanted to mention something that I'm sure Lalu would agree with me. There's a lot of fragmentation in the industry. I mean, hearing you talk about this, did you meet with a group of guys that were doing something called Pharma IT? Did you hear of that project?
No.
Interesting.
Wait, it's Pharma IT. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot and met a lot. I don't know. Or why?
I mean, the whole concept was similar to what you had described. And there was a lot of motion. I mean, right now it's not gone too much, but I know there was that bit of a lot of motion, and you know.
It's hard. This is not actually very easy at all. And if you approach it from an industry perspective, you're probably not going to roll it out because. So this is where my other stuff comes in play, because I'm approaching it as a Amazon platform. I'm approaching it from how did they build Facebook? How did they build Instagram? How they build, these amazing platforms that became completely different things in their future, right? But if you approach it as I'm a pharmacist, I'm in this pharmacy and I'm just gonna do it from what I know from a pharmaceutical perspective, you might get stuck. But if you bring in people from other industries, there's the food, FMCG, they have the same, these same kind of problems. How are they solving it? How are people, how are they solving these types of issues in other industries? You've got to bring everybody to the table to be able to really to kind of create solutions that have strong foundations, especially from a tech perspective. So I'd love to see what they have, if they have something that we can use. But if you're saying that it's something that's been spinning for a while, I understand exactly why. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned some of the issues you had initially with some pharmacies using Excel and all that. So how were you able to solve that? Does your onboarding process involve some form of orientation on the things you require from them?
It used to, yeah. So we used to have to spend some time to onboard. But I think the great thing that's happened during COVID is, that the reality is I would go into these hospitals, somebody's got a smartphone, somebody's got Facebook up, somebody's got, I used to see a lot like Jumia, like someone's computer had, someone was buying something, so the reality is that since 2016, 17, I think the literacy around technology has improved anyways. And then also on top of that, you have, this entire situation with COVID-19 has also propelled people to start using technology much more efficiently, and maybe even just gain deeper understandings. So I think those two factors continue to improve our ability to get people to connect. But we always said, whatever we do is going to be as simple as using Facebook. It's going to be as simple as using Instagram and Amazon. There's nothing complicated in the user experience.
Testing.
Simplicity is one of the major factors for good user experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I've actually checked the Meta platform a couple of times, and actually I feel that is really there. So the question I also want to ask, Meta has actually been recognized by a number of bodies, awards, couple of times. At least recently, I knew you received the Melanin Parker Female Founder Challenge Award. Yeah, so some of these recognitions, what does it mean for the company?
Who is it?
Melanie Parker presented you the Female Founder Challenge Award.
Who?
Melanie Parker.
That was in 2019.
Oh, you're talking about, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. That was a Viva Tech. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some of those recognition and award, what does it mean for MedServ going forward? Or how does it help you reflect and think about developing and growth?
So one very important piece of this business coming to what we're trying to build, not necessarily what we are immediately today, but what we're trying to be. One of the most important pieces of that was that MedServ has to build a brand. We have to be recognized. We have to be recognizable to our suppliers and our hospitals, pharmacies, but also the pharma companies themselves. Some of them are global, some of them are local, but it's going to be the global partners that we scale with across the world, right? So we needed to build a brand. So there's two sides of a brand that we needed to build. And so I had to become a brand, and MedServ has to become a brand. And we knew that in 2016. So, you know, it's nice to be recognized, you know, for pushing through these things. But the reality is that it's extremely helpful as well for us to kind of raise the profile. As you raise your profile, then you get a more abundant opportunities to do more. And that is the bottom line of MedServ, is that we need to be expansive, even if we don't have much, which at many times throughout MedServ's history, you know, we didn't have that much money, or we didn't have this, we didn't have that. We didn't have enough people, you know, so it's about just still continuing to be expansive as we're trying to do something that's extremely hard, hasn't really been done before, and is, you know, a big, huge vision, right? Yeah.
Sure. And, you know, one of the things I find very interesting about your journey, I've followed you for a while, is how truly thoughtful you've been. And I mean, right from the beginning, starting MedServ, you've really given a lot of thought to what the end would look like. You had a really huge vision, but you were able to break it down into small steps and, you know, start at that point. Are there particular insights for female entrepreneurs that you want them to glean from your story around how you started, how you went about tech acquisition? Are there some that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So the reason why I told you guys I started thinking about this in 2014 and started making steps in 2015 is because I knew that I don't have the luxury of just getting up and just starting a business and failing. And, you know, these things take time out of your life. You know,
Sure.
they're a drag on your life. They're a drag on your personal life. And I think for women, you know, kind of juggling those two things is very different for men, right? Men can just pick up and go, and they probably have a supportive wife behind them, you know, with the kids who's holding it down. And so I knew that if I was going to do this, that it better be 100% something that is going to be worth the real sacrifice that I have to make on my entire existence in order to pull this off. Right. So that's why I started, you know, really kind of putting the thought into what is this going to look like years before I launched it. So that's an example. But also it was, you know, it's about, you know, just, you know, kind of creating the framework and making sure that you've got a framework in place for what your vision needs to look like, and that you can be visionary, that you can think 20 steps ahead about what you want to achieve, and have that in place before you just run off and do something. So that's actually just how I am as a person anyways, right? So but yeah, I mean, so I think someone described me like last week or something. They said I'm like a duck on a water. So you see this like stuff that's like, you know,
On the surface.
on the surface, but underneath it's like all
Really, man.
are paddling, and the reality is that's exactly what it feels like, and so this is not glamorous. I have gotten to do many glamorous things, right? But this is not a glamorous life at this point. We will get there, and I will get there, but building up a company to the place where it needs to be, where it can be a global conglomerate, is not a glamorous thing, and I think that it's very hard, it's extremely stressful. So it's not just to women, but to everybody. Are you actually ready to put in the level of work and investment, personal and monetary, that you takes to get to build something of the size that you want it to be? And it's okay not to want to build the largest company in the world. Like that's okay. But you have to just kind of adjust your effort to what you're trying to build. And if there's a mismatch, you're most likely going to fail. So yeah, this is no joke. This is serious. But because I knew that going in, it wasn't like, it was something I prepared for. So for women, though, the trade-offs are much more than they are for men, and that's just reality.
Very true. Very true. And I see that with a lot of understanding of the privilege that I think men have. You're very correct. And sincerely, thank you again for your deep insights about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just about being aware of that and understanding what to commit. And then another thing that I think this is in the Nigerian culture, and I don't understand it fully, is like there's this saying I say, and it's like, ambition without foundation, right? Like not everybody can be the CEO. Not everybody can be the boss of something, like, and you're not going to always be able to start something without actually understanding how these things work, So yes, I came in as the CEO, but I've been working since I was 16. I was serving coffee. I have sold clothes. I have sold sunglasses, glasses. I have, done, so many things on the bottom, be able to rise up to the top. And it's those skills, to be honest with you, if I think about the skills that are even helpful for me today, it was those skills in customer service, in sales, in adversity, in, team members, working with teams, back when I was 16, 18 in college working, that I probably even use more today in Nigeria anyways. And so, wow. But to say that, to what I mean by that is that, like, sometimes you have to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. And if you put that mentality into your career, you'll build a much more sustainable, successful career because you have the foundation. But if you go in expecting to be, the top and the most successful on day one, you're going to be spending money you shouldn't be spending, doing things that you shouldn't be doing, like, and then are you going to be in that position next year? And then what are you going to do that may go against your actual morals and values to try to keep yourself at that position? Now you're vulnerable. So that's what I mean by, like, ambition without foundation is like, it's okay to start at the very bottom and work your way to the top.
Very
Yeah,
true.
thank you very much. Yeah, earlier you mentioned you touched lightly on working with teams and people management. So when you came up with this idea and what you wanted to do, what was your first thought about working with people, or who was the first person that came to mind that was going to build it together with you?
So who was the first person? One of my friends. So I actually went to one of my friends and tried to drag her into helping with MedSaf. And so that's actually a huge lesson. Is I wanted my friend to do everything that I couldn't do, but it wasn't her vision. She wasn't 100% really interested in it. She was doing it for me instead of for MedSaf. And so at some point later, it created this tension between us that actually ended up breaking up our friendship, because she felt she's doing these things for me. And I felt like, but you're doing these things for this amazing company that's going to scale across the world. So there's a mismatch of our, intentions. And so
Yeah.
I do think that, like, finding the right people, if I could do this all again, I would not start MedSaf without having really spent a lot of time identifying the right team members. I would have just done it completely different. But you're in that moment where you're like, I've cracked it, now, like, whoever's around, let's go. Whereas it should have been more of who's going to stand the test of time and who's going to be on this journey with me with the same amount of intensity, or commitment to this project that I have. So for example, I had quit my job to focus on MedSaf, but all of the other people I started MedSaf with had other jobs. You know what I mean? So it was already kind of like a power imbalance, because now I'm the CEO, but I'm also the one doing, the most on MedSaf because you guys have these other jobs. Whereas it could have been nice to have tried to find someone who would have gone as deep as I would have gone in the beginning. It was a nice to have, but then sometimes you can't just find that, but I would have tried harder to do that first. It would have made my life easier, and it would have allowed MedSaf to do the things we wanted to do a lot faster.
What about being able to afford those people? Sometimes you're also not able to afford them.
Absolutely. So that's also part of this issue, right? So no one's getting paid. I'm promising equity. I'm paying the employees that we did start hiring, I'm paying them out of my own bank account, so yeah, and we didn't have the luxury of raising money before we launched the company. And we are raising money, but then it's like very slow, don't have no clue where checks are going to come in from, but we're just hustling and fundraising. And so everything was mismatched, as far as what would have made things smooth in the beginning. But all of those are extremely important business lessons that you can't buy. And so these are all things that make up, how do you deliver and to a customer's promise when you think you might run out of money tomorrow, right? So like, like those are the types of, efficient. And so that forced us to be so efficient with money, like in the beginning, like we didn't have that much. So we really, got to be super tight with the money in the beginning, so yeah, and so a lot of like super hard, uncomfortable lessons in the beginning, but now we've learned them to be able to get to the next level.
Great, great. Now, one of the audience, someone from the audience, you relate in drug distribution and access in Nigeria is large, and price plays a great part in this. How are customers taking the issue of pricing? Is it competitive? Looking at resources technologically and otherwise deployed, that's based on all of the infrastructure you're deploying. Is price still playing a key role, and are you able to compete, with other players?
Yeah. So the point is using data and technology to drive down the price and increase the quality of medications. So how do you get away from that no-name China med because you want to just get the best price, but then you can get maybe a tier 2 like an Emzor or Pfizer or Ranbaxy or you can have a local brand that is more expensive typically, but we've been able to aggregate the demand for that medication in a way that allows you to make it where it's affordable. So so we're constantly analyzing to be able to make sure that we can be price competitive, but then also showing the value of MedZaf in a way that people realize that the service itself is not just about price. If you are as a hospital only focused on a price of a medication, it's going to be a rush to the bottom, right? Sure. And the only thing that can really happen there, if it's not fake, is that it's just crap. It's just like the lowest of the lowest, right? So when I approach this and I see people talk about price, why are they talking about price? Get into the understanding of why is price so important, right? Is it the clientele that you have? Is it their ability to pay? Is it that you don't have access to financing yourself? What is the price, the pressure from a price perspective, right? And then you come up with solutions of how to also support some of those other reasons why price may be such a big issue. And then you can start to see that, well, people will gravitate more now that they have support. They'll gravitate to more what they think is right to give the patient, which may be the cheapest medication, but it might also be a tier 1 as well.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So price is very important, but you don't have to fight just on price if you have tech and data and a comprehensive solution.
Great. Also, recently there was something I saw that you had shared, which relates to wellness at work. You had talked about some Indian practices that you had adopted. Do you want to share about that?
So I'm raising like millions of dollars. I've raised 1.4 for MedZaf, and I'm now raising like 3 more. And so and first of all, like I think I'm like one of 50 Black women in the world that has been able to raise $1 million. And now I'm going to this other feat, right? It's like, can I get investors around the world to care enough about an African issue to actually put their money into solving this really hard problem, right? Like, so from a global, from a mental perspective, it's this daunting feat, right? And so I've gotten into a lot of stuff like, meditation, and religion, and getting back into spirituality in ways to kind of help ground me, but also to push me in the low moments, right? And so I feel like this is all about energy. Money is about energy. Money isn't real. It's about the energy of the exchange, right? And that if you can really put out that positive energy into the atmosphere, that you can gain back what you're looking for. And that's also manifestation, and just and praying and manifestation around what you want to achieve and why. So yeah, getting into like Eastern, Vedic astrology, and understanding, okay, well, how did they, how getting into Vedic astrology, or, oh, okay, how do they handle, understanding your luck or within business, so it's very just interesting thing of just like studying how do these other cultures also kind of either ground themselves, or tap into the power, the personal power necessary to kind of create this type of huge impact, right? So it's not that I've become Indian. It's more
Of course. Well, I think it was very intriguing because, of course, I had seen that there was a lot of activity that was going on at the time. And I guess also that there was a lot of pressure, saying that we were already beginning to anticipate going global. And a lot of work involved in doing that. So I thought that was very intriguing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've got to find this power within myself to bring these things into reality. And the way that you bring something into reality is first taking a baby step, which is how I started the company. We only have a couple $1,000s to start this company. It's all in my bank account, but I can make one step, and then another, and another, and another, towards this goal. And now I've got to do it on a bigger level. We need to be in Kenya and Ivory Coast next year. So I've got to now level up. I've got to now step it up to a level I've never even been on. So what can I pull from my environment, or from what can I pull into my brain that can help me conceptualize the massive amount of work and change that I have to be prepared for in order to be successful. So that's kind of how I think on life.
Amazing.
Regardless of whether it's Menzaf or not, but it's yeah.
Great. And is there a way you're also, I mean, your team around you is also going through these changes? Is there a way you're thoughtfully bringing them on to also think about wellness at work, being, being not too given to the pressures, but understanding and being able to center, daily around themselves, mental health and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely, hopefully, do some more around that, because I think it's a really important topic. I do think that the remote working, has been great for a good amount of our team, in that some of them are staying home and have been home, whether if they want to, since the beginning of COVID-19. So I think that kind of, being able to have a little bit more space, not having to go through Lagos traffic, 3-hour drives back and forth, already has improved some people's life. The reality is that not everybody can be remote, right? So I definitely, am very light on those guys. They don't hear from me. I'm not yelling at those guys typically, but I can definitely do more. But I kind of feel like, let me not fall off the rails first, so that I can then raise the money, so that then we can have the game room, we can have the, like pizza night every week. Like let me get those things. So please give me some selfish time so that I can close this deal, and then we can have more resources for the employees. So that's kind of, where I'm at right this moment.
Interesting. Now, I am aware that we had, in earlier communications, we talked about 1 hour, but there's still so much that I want to cover. I mean, I feel like this discussion should go on like another hour, but we want to be respectful of your time.
We can do a couple more questions if you don't mind.
Okay, I mean, we want to be respectful of your time, and so
I'm going out. It's 9 o'clock on Saturday, so
yeah, I get it. Okay, so we're going to just take a few more questions, and I think we'll be glad to let you go. Now, you come with a lot of experience around policy work. You've also, I know you've also worked with a campaign before, raised money, also spoken to groups, around policy courses and all of that. Currently, what social causes are you currently involved with, and how did you take that experience from volunteering, and bring into your current work at NetSaf?
yeah. So I actually, unfortunately, I am 100% focused on MedZaf. So it's very hard for me at this moment in time to do other things. But that being said, I've grown up volunteering. So, we were, our family, my church, we would go and do soup kitchens every week, and I grew up doing that. And I grew up, doing different programs for children, for teens, education around concepts of homelessness and access throughout my childhood and through high school. Then in college, I was in a sorority. So, our focus was children. So we were tutoring kids, we were putting on, different events for causes that we thought were important. So, I've always had that as a piece of my life up until, these years of kind of trying to focus on the business piece. So, I mean, definitely, I would say that having this mindset of being service to others, if you think about what MedZaf is, it is coming from that same mentality, right? That, we've got to, no matter how hard it is, we're going to create something that's going to make people's lives better and worth living, right? They're not going to die from, high blood pressure because their pills are not real. They're going to be able to get through that, or diabetes management or cancer or whatever it is. People who fall ill don't need to don't need to suffer, and some people may even live longer and healthier lives through, proper medication. So that's where the whole concept of MedZaf is coming from. This idea that you give your service of your life to what's good, So that's where it kind of comes in. And then of course, by volunteering, you're also learning things. Like I remember I did this in college. I went to Detroit, and back then, Detroit was just like, it was a very, in a very bad state. If you research Detroit, in the early 2000s, we were driving into Detroit and we see fires everywhere and gunshots, and just like, wow, this is like a war zone. And we were there building houses. We were building houses for homeless people. And so if you learn to build a house, what materials do you need? How do you work together? Who's leading this? Like it's so. And these are these types of experiences that can really just teach you like these life skills. Project management. We had to do everything to build these houses together, and so it's not like someone comes in and says, here's this hammer. We had to iron this whole thing out ourselves, and so you're learning these skills that are useful in the rest of your life. Like I can build a table, like I can actually do that. That's great. I also volunteered when I ran that political campaign. That was because I had volunteered to hand out pieces of pamphlets, right?
Wow.
I had just said, here's someone I know that is running for office. Let me support the campaign by going and handing out these flyers on the side of the street. And then I saw the opportunities to grow, to support, and I was able to gain a high enough position in that campaign to take it over. You know what I'm saying? So like there are opportunities when all you care about is helping other people.
True.
You know?
Yeah, interesting. So I feel starting MedStaff was a response to a challenge, and I know even executing the idea, there's also been a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we go into even the Nigerian institutional challenge and all that, what do you think is your major policy challenge, or what policy do you think can be changed to make your work at MedSafe a little bit easier?
I don't even want to talk about the policy. You know, like I just don't, because I think what I will say is that I think that a lot of the big issues that we have on fake and substandard medications comes partially because of policy and the over-regulation of the pharmaceutical industry. And so the biggest thing I would just say is that if the government could sit with the entrepreneurs who are trying to solve this problem and like sit with the people who are impacted by this problem and build any type of policy based off of understanding the real results and the outcome of these policies, that would be the best thing. Otherwise, let's leave it alone. Let's just not even talk about it. So that's how I just feel. We're not gonna. Let's not touch this one. We've already seen the logistics companies. Where are they? You know, like no,
Yeah.
no, do not touch this right now. Just keep it down. And that's how I feel.
I mean, if there's one thing that we really need to do, it's like you said, get the regulators to sit down with the entrepreneurs, and then also get them to sit with the end users and see, the real impact that policies end up making. Pricing of medicines, how disruptions along the supply chain can lead into fake medicines or falsified substandard medicines getting into the the supply chain. I think we are also positioned in a way to make that happen. And I mean, it's not a full-blown promise, but I assure you, along the line, we will make that happen.
Okay.
We will make that happen.
So policy from the ground up. Policy for the people. Let's say that. Let's have a campaign slogan right there. Policy for the people. I'm happy.
Policy for the people.
Okay, I'm happy to sign up for that. I'll be on the front lines of that push, but only if the mindset comes from there.
Great. Now, I mean, just so we begin to round up, like I said, we have we have a lot of respect for your time. We have tons of questions that we won't dive in. I mean, on the side, I'm contributing to a note where questions just seem to be piling up. Hey, this isn't going down at all. Now, I know you said, in some other fora that starting MedSafe, you did not start up in stealth mode. But I mean, after launching, I mean, there definitely might have been some other developments that have been in stealth mode. So in the next 1-2 years, what do we think, what should we be expecting from MedSafe?
Yeah, I mean, so I think competitors, I said this today to myself actually, but competitors who think that they're competing with MedSafe don't actually really know what they're actually competing with, and anyone who thinks that they're competing with me as the founder, the most dangerous thing is my brain. Like you're actually not really competing. We are looking at a way to support the ecosystem, and that means there has to be more players involved, and we are going to support their movement of medications. So the reality is that even people always say, oh, what about M-Pharma? M-Pharma is not even a direct competitor of MedSafe. Like we can give medications. We've always been able to support various pieces of M-Pharma's business, whether that is the distribution of medications, even potentially the outreach, and there's different pieces of their supply chain that we can plug into from the very beginning, from back in 2017 that we could have done, but I think that this mindset that everything has got to be, there's only one person that can do this, or there's only one. That is the reason why you don't see massive corporations coming out of Nigeria that are serving the world. It is
correct.
This crabs in the barrel mentality that, oh, I'm going to stealth mode watch you and then do the same business you're doing. I'm going to go to the same customers. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. And one of the things that I noticed about Jewish people, first of all, they had a lot of money. They had a lot of money. But one of the things I noticed is that you had the rabbi, and then you had, someone who would build businesses to support what the rabbi was doing. You have the bakery. We had a bakery on the side. Someone would then create a logistics company to be shipping that bread across the neighborhood. And it was literally like this web of people supporting each other. You know what I'm saying? And like that, somehow Africa suffers from this mentality that if you've got something, I've got to have exactly what you have, versus what does MedZaf not able to build that maybe I could build and we could just start a partnership with and we could grow together? Because this girl's clearly Kenya next month, next year, and she's going to Ivory Coast. Maybe I could get my business, to accelerate because I've partnered with her.
Excellent. Good thoughts.
So like, go be in stealth. If you're a company trying to start MedZaf and in stealth mode, good luck, because it's about execution. It's about what's in your mind, and that's what drives you. And there's nothing you're going to hear me say that's actually going to take the real experience of building this company and learning how to fix it and copy it.
Great one. So, aside from the expansion to other countries, so what are we still looking at? You've talked about, what you're doing, quality as a service. You've talked about added on services. You've talked about partnerships. Now, on this other end, where we're looking at the patients being able to afford their medicines, what are we looking at from MedZaf in supporting the patients?
Yeah, so we're spinning that out into a whole piece of the platform that allows hospitals and pharmacies to get access to financing, and suppliers to get access to financing for their medications. And so, we've got a lot of learnings from what needs to happen in an African context and a Nigerian context, to basically tailor, this concept of fintech and how it can actually adapt and be adapted for, hospitals and pharmacies and healthcare industry.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. It's been a wonderful time with you, Vivian. I couldn't have traded this time for any other thing.
Every interview I do, I tell a new story I've never told. So you guys heard now that I was fired, and that is why.
Yeah. I had not heard that. I've listened to probably over the last few months. I guess I must have listened to probably 20 interviews that you've done or read blogs that you've written. In fact, I think it was about last week or so, my partner, my wife said, man, there's just something different about the boldness, about Vivian, that was very interesting. So I never heard you talk about that. When you talk about solution, I was like, whoa.
I've got a lot of life's experiences. And to be honest with you, it's those life experiences that have allowed me to do what I'm doing today. So I wasn't afraid to say, let me try these things. Let me fail. Let me do really bad. Like, let me do something I'm just not good at and see what happens. And I've done that my whole life. And so I have a lot of experiences. I have a lot of stories, and they just keep growing, Yeah.
So it's been a wonderful 1 hour with you, Vivian. Thanks so much for coming on the Innovating Pharmacy Show. We do hope to, still collaborate with you further. We will make that sit down happen,
Absolutely.
very soon. We will make it happen. Yeah. And I look forward.
Slogan,
Yeah, I look forward to I think it still speaks to a lot of what some of our guests have said in time past. But I mean, there must have been a way you communicated that, it's beginning to resonate with us and saying, see, we better begin to talk about solving problems, not just airing them or talking about them on this show. And I think that it's time we, get our hands wet with this.
Dirty.
So thank you very much. It's been a great time. Now, there is something, we need to provide some value to MedSAF. So please, how do the viewers, the pharmacists that listen to the show, how do they connect with MedSAF?
All of you guys are pharmacists. You're all making procurement decisions in your respective pharmacies and hospitals. MedSAF is the solution for you. We're gonna make your life easier. I'll give you all, if you mention this program, I'll give you a special discount if you are a new MedSAF customer. And so all you have to do is reach out to me at vivian@medzaf.com, and I'll give you your hospital or pharmacy a discount on your first purchase with MedSAF.
Great.
Yeah?
Great. Thanks so very much. That's a great one. So with that, we come to the end of this show. I want to say thank you again, and we will continue to stay in touch and keep doing great stuff at MedSAF. We look to a bright future, and we do hope that tweet comes true, seeing MedSAF become a unicorn very soon.
Global. And you can
I look forward to that.
A Nigerian company, and it is a global success.
Yes. We sincerely look forward to that.
Okay.
Thank you again, and do have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.